It was a nightmare. It was a legislative nightmare, and the amazing statement that I will refer to a number of times. The then Democratic Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States said, "We must pass this bill so we can see what's in it." They didn't have a clue, and it's doubtful if any congressman read the whole thing through. Well, now that the president has been elected, the new health care plan is the law of the land, and it's highly unlikely that it'll be removed. But it may mean some important changes for every American's health care. And most people still don't like the new law. But one woman says there are steps you can take to survive and beat Obamacare. Take a look.
You may not know her name, but you may recognize Betsy McCaughey as the woman who shows up at television interviews lugging the entire 2,572-page health care law with her. McCaughey is a lawyer and health care policy expert who has pored over every detail of the law and has been sounding the alarm about its shocking realities. For example, if you presently get health insurance through your job, you may lose it as of January 1st, 2014. If you're a senior or a baby boomer, you can expect less care than in the past. And as of 2014, you'll have to show proof on your tax return that you're enrolled in a government-approved health care plan or pay a hefty penalty. But McCaughey says there are ways to protect the quality of your health care and protect your pocketbook. Her new book, Beating Obamacare, Your Handbook for Surviving the New Health Care Law, boils the convoluted medical jargon in the massive law down to its essential facts to give you what you need to prepare for the coming storm.
Betsy McCaughey, she's with us. It's an intriguing book, Beating Obamacare. Let's see, how did you survive reading this thing?
Well, here it is, the entire Obama health law. And actually, I read it so you don't have to. But everybody does need to know what's in this law because so many Americans are already getting clobbered with the effects of this law. For example, most Americans get their health insurance at work, either through their job or their spouse's job. But in the next few months, many millions of Americans are going to hear that their employer is dropping coverage.
Why are they going to drop coverage?
Well, because the law says that beginning in 2014, employers with 50 or more full-time workers have to provide coverage, but not just any coverage. They have to provide this one-size-fits-all government-mandated package of essential benefits. Well, it's going to cost about twice as much as what many employers currently pay. So employers are looking at that price tag and saying, I can't afford that. I'm going to stop coverage entirely and pay the penalty. Or some employers are pushing down their full-time workers to part-time status, meaning less than 30 hours a week, to avoid the law entirely. So that's one of the pieces of bad news. This mandated benefit package adds a whopping $1.79 an hour, every hour, to the cost of hiring a worker like a salesperson or a waitress or an administrative assistant. It just makes it too costly.
Betsy, the political class during this election kept talking about we're going to create jobs. We need jobs, jobs, jobs. You heard it all the time. Oh, we're going to have jobs. This is a job killer of the first order. Why don't the Democrats recognize that?
Well, and what's shocking is that the government's own economists projected before this bill was passed into law that fewer people would get health coverage on the job after this law was passed than if it weren't passed at all. They knew that people were going to lose their on-the-job coverage, and everybody needs to be prepared for that. But actually, the biggest impact of all is on seniors, because cuts to this law, cuts to Medicare under this law pay for over half this law. Imagine that. Cuts to Medicare pay for over half this law.
Can the president get on television and say, well, I'm concerned about the seniors and these Republicans don't? I mean, it's just shocking. It's a pack of lies, it looks like to me.
It is. You use the right word. It's lies. But here's what seniors need to expect. And this is straight from the chief actuary of Medicare, Richard Foster. He's told Congress twice now that seniors will get much less care in the future than they're currently getting. About $1,431 less care per year right, than they currently receive. Now, that means a big difference to many seniors, and the biggest difference is going to be hospital care. Hospitals, some will stop taking Medicare, according to Foster, and the hospitals that continue to take Medicare will have to spread nurses thinner. That will mean when you push that button for help, you're going to wait longer. And we have a lot of evidence that when hospitals spread nurses thinner and increase the workload on nurses, patients have a harder time surviving their illness.
Well, what is this business in 2014, I guess, that if you have to show the IRS that you have a government-approved plan. If you don't, you pay a fine. Tell us about that.
That's right. When you file your taxes, you have to attach proof that you were enrolled in the government-approved plan. If you don't, you may not get your refund. That's how they withhold the penalty. They just don't send you part or all of your refund. I think the two most shocking provisions in this law, though, one is Section 3000A that actually awards bonus points to hospitals that spend the least per senior. They reward the hospitals that spend the least per senior. And we have so much evidence that the hospitals that spend the least per senior, that are in the bottom quintile on spending per senior, have substantially higher death rates from pneumonia, from heart attacks, and from other illnesses common among the elderly. Those patients in those hospitals just don't have a good chance of making it home again.
This is a heartless monstrosity, and yet the progressives were claiming they were doing something good for the people of America. What you're saying is a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. They sold it as helping the uninsured, something I very much want to do. But, in fact, this takes a lot of health care away from people who currently have insurance. The other real shocker is Section 1311, which for the first time in history puts the federal government in charge of your care. Even if you're in a private health plan, you pay for yourself with no subsidy at all. That section says that doctors must obey whatever regulations the Secretary of Health and Human Services imposes in the name of quality. That can mean literally anything. When your OBGYN does a cesarean, when your cardiologist chooses a stent versus a bypass, and what kinds of questions your doctor must ask you and must include in that electronic medical record.
I'm speechless.
So say goodbye to health care privacy. It's over.
Yeah, I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless that they would do this and it would go through and that the people would vote for it. It did pass the Congress. Your book is called Beating Obamacare. Give us a clue. How do you beat it, your chance of surviving? What do you do to get around
Well, let me give you some very specific examples. If you're a baby boomer in your late 50s or early 60s, line up your relationships with doctors now, a primary care doctor, an internist, a cardiologist. Solidify those relationships, because if you wait until you're 65 and on Medicare, you will not be able to find a doctor willing to treat you.
Betsy, you have done a landmark job. I don't think there's anybody in the country in the work that you've done. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, by the way, your book is available where books are sold?
Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, your local bookstore. It's called Beating Obamacare. And with my help, I hope we can do this.
Betsy McCaughey. How do you get McCaughey out of McCaughey? Is that
It's a real Scotch-Irish name.
Okay, well, a Scotsman it takes to save some money. Betsy, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy.
Great interview. Well,